Hello, everyone. My name is Greg Marcel Dixon. I am a public school teacher. I have been the teacher of the year for my school. I've been the district teacher of the year. I've served on the Educational Policy Fellowship Committee, where we look at how law impacts children because children are part of society as well, and yet they have the least authority in society. They can't vote, so they usually are just a reflection of the decisions that the adults have made. And I was very successful in the classroom. There used to be a rating system in South Carolina called EVOS 5, where they rated how your children grew under your tutelage and they rated how they achieved overall. And I was having a lot of success with my students. I was seeing too many of my students not make it, whether they did well in school or the kids who were making bad decisions and continued that pattern. So I realized that there were things being done long before these kids got to my door that needed to be addressed. So I decided that if I can teach the children a lesson, then I can go up to DC and teach them a lesson too. That's why I'm running.
Good evening. My name is Michael Simpson. I am also running for the U.S. House of Representatives for District 6, South Carolina. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in Illinois. When I was 26 years old, I joined the Navy. From there, I moved to Florida, to Virginia, to Japan, back to Virginia, where I met my wife, Karen. We had our first child, Morgan. We moved to California, where we had our twins. And then we moved back to Virginia, where we had our youngest. Then we moved to Japan, to Portugal, to Germany, and I retired here in South Carolina. I live in Somerville with my family. I'm running as a libertarian. I joined just last year, but realized that the older that I have gotten, my views far surpass or far make me more aligned with the Libertarian Party. And that's why I'm
Let's go ahead and you can give me 2 minutes this time. Okay. Like an opening statement, and you probably can expand on your introduction if you will. Okay. 2 minutes.
the platform that I'm running on, and thank you for the question. The platform that I'm running on, I've changed it since I first started it. It was people, progress, and education, but I realized that progress and education are kind of loaded words, and based on your point of view, it means so many different things. So really, now it's a message, and it's for the people: awaken and arise. And the reason it's all about the people, like has been set up here. But awaken and arise it's a new start. Awaken is a new start every time you get up. But if you awaken without arising, you're just kind of stuck where you are. If you arise without awakening, it's like you're sleepwalking, which is kind of what we've kind of been doing in the U.S. for a while now. We've arisen, but we're asleep still. And if you do neither, it's like we're not even here. So you have to awaken and arise. The policies or the issues that I'm most concerned about are what I want to see changed is a lot of other parties talk about the economy. I am more concerned about consumer health. How is your economy, my economy, your economy? I would offer right now that it's not very good. The second thing is I think this country needs a declaration of peace. We have a Declaration of Independence. We've been fighting ever since. It's time to stop the fighting. We need a declaration of peace. And the third one is I want to work to stop legal plunder. And what that is the government takes from us what is rightfully ours. They do it legally through the federal income tax and other taxes that they take. I think that should be repealed, and I will work to endeavor to do that if I am elected.
I neglected to mention where I'm from. I'm from Jasper County, South Carolina, from a town called Ridgeland, not too far from where Mr. Buckner's from. And when I was growing up, it was my great-grandmother's house, my great-grandaunt's house, my great-grandaunt's house, and it was a lot of us as cousins. We fought with each other, and of course, we had each other's back. And I grew up in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. It was not a long time ago. But even then, growing up, a lot of people in my community, and I lived in a majority freedman community, the descendants of those who were enslaved and emancipated by this nation, they owned land. And even though a lot of it was heirs' property, meaning that they had to share the land so no one was able to fully benefit from it, we had land, everyone had a place to go. So no one was ever homeless. I've now seen that land in South Carolina District 6 have highways put through it to pave way for hotels, to pave way for resorts, while the people in those communities cannot even afford to spend a single night in the hotels that are being constructed. They cannot afford to retire in the communities that are being constructed. I believe that we as a nation, we take care of foreign nations that hate us. We take care of people who come into this nation illegally, who have broken our laws, and yet South Carolina is spending $700 million a year taking care of people in this country illegally. I do not think it's a stretch to say that we can take care of hard-working Americans. I'm in an area they call the Corridor of Shame. It refers to a network of mainly rural counties in South Carolina, majority black counties, where school failure has been endemic. It happens all the time. And there's a lot of other issues related to crime because of the poverty there. I used to hate that name, Corridor of Shame. And now I understand why. Because the shame should not be on the people living there. The shame should be on the elected officials representing the people who live there. James Clyburn has been the elected representative for South Carolina District 6 for 32 years. His district is the sixth poorest out of 435 districts in America. Am I putting all the blame on him? Absolutely not. But he shares in the blame as well because he's definitely been sharing in the privilege and the benefits. So I believe that we can do better than what we've been doing. And I was raised to not just talk about the problem, but to be a part of the solution.
Well, one of our priorities as an alliance party is to form alliances and get people to talk to each other again. We have built alliances with Braver Angels and StoryCorps and people who realize that the method of government is really sloppy right now. And it's this partisanship that happens in Washington especially is just pathetic, and it has to change. We have to elect some of us outside of the big two parties. It would only take 6 to 8 of us to change the face. We could actually then form a caucus that would balance the budget, look at the budget and say, no more continuing resolutions. Let's have a conference committee to iron this out like it's supposed to be. So the people that created the republic got together and hammered it out, even if it took days, months, weeks. Now we need to do that. We need to balance this budget. Right now, it's embarrassing the way that we're operating in Washington. Another threat to shut down the government. That's just pathetic. So I think we, as citizens, should be a fourth branch of government. That's what Mike Gravel had in mind, citizen power. We should override them when they're not doing their job. In fact, there should be a bill that we as citizens sponsor that says, look, if they can't balance the budget, none of them are eligible for re-election. Time to move on from that. Let's get a whole new breed of candidates, people that serve honorably, people that will disclose their financial and economic activities. There's still 7 or 8 of them up there who aren't revealing their stock trades. And so they're skirting their own rules, you know, and so we serve honorably as citizens, transparently, with term limits. Bam, we'll have a much better country. Thank you.
Again, thank you all again for coming out tonight. I'm running for 2 primary reasons: freedom and opportunity for all Americans. Freedom, number one, because when our nation is $34 trillion in national debt, we're not free economically. When we have 60% of 8th graders in the country, in South Carolina, can't read on level, and another 70% can't do basic math. We're not free education. And then when you have a substantial amount of murders and shootings where people don't feel safe in their home, being able to sit on their porch, or just being in their house and afraid that they're going to get shot by a bullet, that's not free. And opportunities for advancement are so important because when you look at, again, what's going on around the other counties, the other areas of the state, Aubrey, Myrtle Beach, Hilton Head, they're all prospering and doing well. But as Mr. Dixon mentioned, the 6th district is the poorest district in South Carolina. It's been that way for over 30 years. And it's time for that change. And how does that change? It changes like this. You know, I'm a member of St. Peter's Anglican Church. So, you know, in our format, we have pastors, they come and go as bishops decide. When we have a good pastor, people come to church, tithes and offerings is doing well, everything is working, and everything is good. But when we get a bad pastor, the exact opposite happens. Folks stop coming, people stop giving, and there's less work being done in just the community. So I believe that we need good leadership. When you have good leadership, you have progress and prosperity that follows. And when you have bad leadership, then you have corruption, have no progress, have what we have now in the 6th Congressional District. So I'm running because I want to see us all do well. Our children deserve better than what they've been getting educationally. We have an opportunity on November the 5th to take our vision back and make it the way we want to make it. And my one word for the 6th Congressional District, my vision is one word, and that one word is excellence. 6th District excellence. Excellence in everything that we do, so that we can be at the top, not at the bottom when we are now.
I want to address issue of infrastructure.
Well, that's a good question, and we definitely need an expansion of infrastructure in the whole country. And there's two ways to do it, which will also balance the budget at the same time. One, you bring home the troops from far reaches of the world that aren't needed they're not in conflict zones. You bring them home, you're bringing billions of dollars back, and you can put those folks to work building the infrastructure. That's one. The second is end corporate welfare. We are spending, the litigators and lobbyists who own Washington right now are spending, a couple $100 million for $1 billion worth of benefits for their own corporatism and corporate ventures. They don't look at it. It's like you would think that the billionaires would care that they have a stable country and a better economy for everybody. But no, they don't care. They're going to build themselves safe rooms and buy up all the agricultural resources. And, nuclear war comes, they're going to protect themselves. So there is ways that we can build a better infrastructure. But you got to start with the systematic problems, and that is the empire, the war empire that they keep expanding and expanding. Doesn't matter which party's in charge. They both do it. So that's where we start.
Well, I will co-sign Mr. Otto's point. We are spending not billions, but if you add up throughout the year, trillions building up the infrastructure of foreign nations. Call for Ukraine, call for Israel right now, while our own infrastructure is falling apart here in South Carolina. South Carolina District 6, according to America's Infrastructure Report Card, was rated a D- in regards to infrastructure. We needed crucial repairs in our highways and our bridges and our port. The Port of Charleston is the 9th most lucrative port in the United States of America, and yet it is in need of dire repairs. There's two things we can address with fixing the infrastructure. One, South Carolina has a labor engagement rate of just 62%, one of the lowest in America. And two, South Carolina has the 7th lowest medium wage in the United States of America. An average median wage of just $42,000. $60,000 is considered minimum wage in Charleston, South Carolina. So how are people going to get by on $42,000? We address this in multifaceted way. One, we encourage our kids to go to vocational school where they can get those blue collar jobs that people used to denigrate. There are plenty of areas right now where we need plumbers. We need people to work on highways. We need people to do welding. Encourage our kids to get into those fields and they'll be able to get jobs that can take care of ourselves. Number two, instead of building up foreign nations infrastructure, we reinvest that back here. And number three, we make corporations make sure they are actually hiring actual Americans, because what actually is happening right now, we have corporations who are hiring people here illegally, and what the people here illegally do is they're sending billions of dollars back to their home countries. Just this year alone, Mexico, people who are sending money to Mexico in remittances have sent $63 billion back to Mexico. If you hire Americans, Americans are going to put that money right back in the economy. So that is how we'll address our infrastructural needs here in South Carolina District 6.
So let me start by saying this. In the Navy, when we had formal functions, you'd get dressed up, and after the formal part was over, you kind of dressed down a little bit to show that the party was about to start. So with that being said, infrastructure, and I'm just going to get comfortable here because what I want to do. Infrastructure has to do with the people. The people are what create the infrastructure. So if you have the people able to do the job that they're going to do, the infrastructure is going to follow. It has nothing to do with, the government. The government's just there for the people, or supposed to be. And right now, it isn't. So we need to get it back to the people and let the people decide what infrastructure they need, how they get it. And that's what we, if we were in Congress at this time, are there to do, is to help the people of our district perform the infrastructure that they need. I agree with some of the things that these gentlemen have said about, helping foreign governments. We're all people. We all have to help each other, I believe. Is it by billions of dollars to help the war machine? No, absolutely not. Or trillions of dollars to help the war machine? Absolutely not. We have the highest spending of any nation for defense. And we are gluttonous at it. We have to stop that. We need to cut back and go with this declaration of peace and realize that peace is hard. But when you save that money, that's going to go to the infrastructure as well. That's all right.
One of the main issues that I have with infrastructure, making sure that local people get jobs. That is not happening. That is not happening. So when I'm your congressman, if there's an infrastructure project, first right of refusal or first opportunity would be to local contractors, local vendors who can provide the work and keep the dollars flowing within the community instead of hiring somebody from 2 or 3 states over to do the project. And secondly, we need an advocate in Washington, D.C. to make sure that the infrastructure dollars come to our district. That's not happening. When you look at I-95, it needs resurfacing, it needs leveling, it needs to be expanded to 3 lanes. It's not right now, but when you go to North Carolina, Florida, these other places, they got beautiful interstates. Why is ours jacked up and looking bad? That's because we don't have a congressman who is going to advocate and say, no, fix this road. It needs to be fixed and demand that it be done. And that's what I'm going to do with your congressman on infrastructure. One, make sure the money is being spent locally so that we got local jobs being created so that it can work within our own economy. And 2, make sure that the dollars come to the 6th district the way that it should be so that we can have the best roads, the best bridges. One of my visions for the 6th district is to have a light rail system that can connect Florence all the way down to Jasper, so that when folks who are traveling right now an hour to an hour and a half to get to work every day, and they're paying $3 and $4 for gas, that's really hurting them in their bottom line. So I want to see us be able to have a rail system that can make it easier for people to work throughout the 6th congressional district with all 14 counties that
Mr. Mills, may I add something real quick? We also have an issue that may sound jarring to people, but it's a big issue in South Carolina District 6, and that's people having clean water. You mentioned Florence, South Carolina. You have churches that are having to put filters in their churches because they cannot drink tap water. Denmark, South Carolina has not had clean water in about 15 years. They stopped putting the contaminants in the water, but they never changed the pipes. So we talk about, oh, let's make sure we bring clean water to people in Asia and people in Africa. Right here in South Carolina, District 6, we have people who every day are literally putting their health at risk, drinking water that's contaminated, or they're having to buy bottled water. We deserve better than that, and we deserve better than what James Clyburn has been giving us.
Your thoughts on that also?
Well, it's part of the infrastructure that I advocated as an independent green for 30 years up in Virginia. We actually got the rail expanded in that state. So it's good to hear folks, even this party that's usually affiliated with oil, to advocate for rail. It's really good to see that. But our picture for rail is a high-speed, true high-speed national rail system that connects the 10 most populous cities with maglev. I mean, it's very embarrassing that our country can only go 100 miles an hour. They call that high speed. Well, you could go to Europe or Japan or China and go well over 200, almost 300 miles an hour.
One thing that I would add, and it's completely off track of what this infrastructure is we're talking about highways. Those bypass the towns that we're talking about. Why do we not care about the highways? Why don't we travel the local roads and go through the local towns and provide those folks the businesses instead of the highways and the off stations? If you want to help the little people, take the off road. Don't go on the highway and drive as fast as you can to get there. Take your time. Live your life.